Welcome to Cricketology. You know, this is a really bad time for me to have chosen to become a cricket presenter, because from the time I've started last year, at least here on social media, Sri Lanka's fortunes haven't been that good. And that's been the case, hasn't it, from 2015 onwards, especially in limited overs cricket. And here we are discussing another serious loss, as we have been over the last few videos. This time in the one-day internationals against the West Indies in the Caribbean. This time 3-0, unfortunately. Last time I spoke to Harun on the show, we thought that, okay, we might do better in the ODIs. But unfortunately, tables turned and we lost quite badly. 3-0 is not a good result for our ODI team. It should have been better, but unfortunately, that's what it has come to. As always, we look at the serious loss and then we look at the positives and see how we can improve on those going forward. One man who's been through the highs and lows of Sri Lanka cricket as a commentator on radio, and of course, many other things, is Kosala Sureshchandra, DJ Kosala, as we'd like to call him.
Yeah.
How are you, Kosala?
I'm doing fine, hoping that things can be better.
Yes, exactly. How can things get better? That's the problem, isn't it? From the three ODIs, we saw same problems getting repeated. Getting a good start and then throwing it away in the middle. Seriously, our batting is a real concern. How are we going to change things around? How are things going to improve, Kosala? Because I don't see any light at the end of the tunnel. Do you?
Yeah, well, I think what we really need to focus is we need to find out who we need to bring in to bat at the relevant positions. Because we've been keep on changing. Like say we see Angelo Matthews sometimes batting at number 4, batting at number 5. We see Chandimal batting at number 3, number 2. So you don't even have the batsman itself. The players itself not having a permanent position. So your game plan changes from game to game.
Right.
So that is what we really need to focus. Maybe give a few games continuously to a few players.
At a fixed position.
So that they stabilize themselves and they plan out how I take my game forward. So I think that's where we've been lacking. We've been twisting and turning, and even the openers now finally Danushka and Dimuth has settled down to be open. But even then we keep changing. Your number 4 changes, your number 6 changes. So what is the game plan of the player? What is his mentality? How does he come out of this?
How does he train? How does he prepare? These things matter, right? Actually, a good point. Give a fixed position to the batsman and say, listen, I'm going to give you 10 games. Go out there, show me what you're made of. Despite that, though, as we always do, we talk about the good performances. And this time, the good thing is there were good performances from the youngsters. Ashin Bandare is a name that everyone's talking about. Now they're saying, he might not be as skilled as some of the other batsmen, but the guy's got this. Right, so he knows how to read the game, when to accelerate, when to go for those big shots, and he's got a good armory of strokes as well. Him and Wanindu in that last match gave us some hope that finally, maybe perhaps in that number 7, 8 position, we've got 2 guys who can bring the game up to the 50th over. Because one of the issues we had was we used to get all out all the time and not bat the whole 50 overs. But with guys like him and guys like Wanindu in there, good positive signs.
Yeah, well, definitely the positives been Ashin Bandar and Wanindu in terms of the batting. We'll come to the bowling later on, but the fact is, if you go a little back, how Sri Lanka planned their 50 overs, that is the concern. Now we all talk about how much you get in your first power play, how much you would get from over number 40 to 50. But do we really analyze and see what we should be doing between over number 10 and 40?
That's where mostly we lose games.
Because if you see, we give too many dot balls during that period. That is a concern. So, and if you are about 2 wickets down for the first 10 overs for about 40 to 50, yes, you're okay. You could say you're fine. But then the remaining batters need to make sure that they bat the remaining 30 overs with the minimum of loss. If you can maintain a rate of around 5 runs an over during that 30 overs, you get 150 automatically.
Yes.
You're 50 at the start, so you're 200 already at the start of the 40th. And then you set the platform for an onslaught at the end of the day, end of the 10 overs. So if you get 80 at the time, you're 280. So 280 means you're pushing for 300. So in modern day one-day cricket, if you don't have 300, it's not a winning score. That's how the game has really evolved around. So I think that is why Sri Lanka needs to really figure out how they need to. We need to minimize dot balls and minimize loss of wickets during that period of 30 overs.
But that is what has changed actually, Kosala, in the modern ODI game. You have only 4 fielders outside the circle now from over number 11 to 40, right? So scoring ideally should be easier compared to before, and that's why you see in ODIs mostly, except for Sri Lanka, you see teams getting 320s, 330s, 340s, and even those aren't winning scores. Those are par. But unfortunately for Sri Lanka, we think we've made 260, 270, 280, and we think, okay, we're going to defend this. Ideally, realistically, that's not a defendable score. On a good batting track, any team should be able to chase it down. So that brings the question then, is it a more deep-rooted Sri Lankan problem that maybe perhaps our local and our school coaches haven't looked past textbook batting, haven't looked past the traditional way of building an innings, or have you not looked at the modern way of expanding your array of strokes? Because let's face it, when you look at teams like Australia, India, and them batting, some of the shots those guys play, some of the very unique, innovative methods of batting they bring about, you don't see that with Sri Lanka's batting, and that's one of the reasons we've been left behind. Do you think it's a more deep-rooted grassroots problem?
It is a deep-rooted problem, as you said, because I think you need to look at the school level, from school to the club level, the premier level, how you groom players. For example, so coming back to that answer that I gave you earlier, again, we don't know who our exact number 4 is. We don't know who our exact number 5. Now, in school cricket, for example, you take a player who bats at number 4. He continues to start his career. He goes into the club level. He keeps on scoring runs at that position. But then he is unable to find a place in the Sri Lanka side because there is a permanent number 4.
Correct.
Then, because of his performances, they decide that, okay, we need to give this guy an opportunity. So they bring him and ask him, you need to open the batting. You need to go at number 5.
Okay.
But then, what is your mentality?
He's never done that before.
He's never done that before. So how do I adjust accordingly? And you're inviting that player to adjust in the international sector, not on a domestic level.
Exactly.
So that itself puts the player down. So it's hard for him. So he's always thinking, well, how do I get a ball? How do I do it? And the other thing is, like if you see the West Indies series, we had 3 centurions at the West Indies side in all games. We didn't have a centurion. We had Darshak. And the other thing is, when our set batsmen get to 100 or 80, they don't take it to the big score. They don't make it a big 100. If you see in the good days, Mahela Jayawardena, Dilshan, Sangakkara, even Aravind De Silva, Upul, when they got 100, they batted on till about the 40th over.
Yes.
And they got the other batsmen set in to go for the onslaught at the end of the final.
So when we're talking hundreds, we're talking 130s,
130, yeah. So you need to
140s,
take it to that. Or you need to make sure that you are there till about the 40th over.
Yes.
Because you have created that atmosphere for the remaining batters to come in and then free their arms around.
Correct.
Because you're the set batsman. But if you get out scoring 100 between the 30th and the 35th over, then you're bringing new batsmen in who need to settle in.
Correct.
And start doing it.
That's a brilliant point, actually. So, I mean, those are some of the few nitty-gritty issues, aren't there, in the batting? And it's not something we can't iron out. These are things that can be handled. Just need to do a bit of, the batsmen themselves need to do some soul searching and decide how they're going to approach their innings. Okay, let's talk about the bowling. I think the bowling wasn't all that bad. It was good to have Lakmal's experience back in the third ODI. We thought, after the T20 series, we thought that our spinners will give a real fight to the West Indies batsmen. Unfortunately, it didn't work out though. Is it a case of our spinners not being up to the mark, or were West Indies ODI batting much better than their T20 batting?
I think the ODI batting by the West Indies are more controlled. They were very watchful. If you see, they didn't want to give Wanindu wickets. They made sure that they played Wanindu off in his 10 overs.
Right.
And even Sandakan, they didn't want to give him the wicket. If you saw, Lewis batted well in the second ODI, Shai Hope in the first, and then Bravo coming in the third. So I think they really analysed the spinners pretty well. They made sure that they worked them around within their period of bowling and not give them wickets. So they had wickets going in, even though if you look at West Indies winning in the 48th over, winning in the 49th over, but they were always in control of the game.
That's a good point, actually. They were in control by not giving wickets to the spinners and not getting themselves under pressure, which unfortunately our batsmen did too many times. Okay, so that's that. I guess the ODI series is out of bounds now. There's nothing we can do about it. Now the series lost for us to ponder upon. Hopefully things will get better in the limited overs format for Sri Lanka. Test series coming up. 2 tests against the Windies. Some of the blokes who didn't make it to the limited overs, they've been there. I think Dhananjay De Silva, Lasith Ambaldenia, they've been there. I mean, the batting, it's going to be obvious lineup. You've got guys like Dimuth who'll open, then you have Chandimal who'll definitely play. Matthews is not there, he's back home. But then the batting, it's sort of settled. We know who our batsmen are. But it's the bowling combinations that I'm really interested about. How do you think we're going to go about
Well,
it?
it's now interesting to see whether Sri Lanka wants to play 2 spinners in the lineup and go with the 2 fast bowlers.
Okay.
So are they going to play 2 specialized spin bowlers and 2 specialized fast bowlers? Looking at the West Indian tracks, I would prefer say we go with 3 fast bowlers and 1 spinner.
Okay.
And since we are having Dhananjay De Silva in the squad,
That extra
off-spin option is always available. But then who is your spinner that you're going to pick for the test series?
Lasith Ambaldenia.
Ambaldenia has to be the option because though Wanindu Hasaranga is there in the side, can Wanindu bowl long spells?
Correct.
Can he be the pegging bowler? Normally what you would say if you saw Murali bowl, if you saw other Rangan Herat bowl, they hold one end and keep on bowling.
Correct. And that's what gets them wickets. That stock ball gets them the wickets.
And they make sure that they dry up runs. They make it hard for the batsman to dry. So then the batsman starts to try and do something innovative or try to do something and they lose their wicket. So I would say Ambaldenia should be the number 1 choice of spinner.
Okay.
Going into the fast bowlers, Suranga Lakmal definitely with his experience. Dushmantha Chamira has been fairly good with his back of the length delivery. So he might have the edge over, I would say, in my opinion, it would be Chamira, Suranga Lakmal, and Vishwa Fernando, just to bring in that variation of a left-arm spinner.
Angle, yes.
But recently, Sri Lanka have opted to go with Asitha Fernando ahead of Vishwa Fernando because of the nippiness that he has. So I think 3 of these 4 fast bowlers will be the option.
I think it'll depend on how they perform in that practice game that's going on as we speak. There is Dasun Shanaka as well to provide that extra seam option.
But then he will be playing in more as a batsman. So, and coming into the batting line, that is who is going to open with Dimuth Karunaratne?
That's a very good question, actually.
Because I think the option is open for Oshada Fernando or Pathum Nissanka, and there is Thirimana as well. So will they go in? So if we really look at it, Dimuth Karunaratne definitely at the opening slot, and it will be a twist between
Nissanka and Thirimana.
Will they
go with the more experienced bloke or the debutant?
Or even they also have Oshada Fernando. So I think even those 2 of those 3 will fit into number 1, 2 and 3.
Correct.
So then you have Chandimal coming in at number. Now the other question is, are they going to play Dikwella as a specialized wicket keeper, or are they going to ask Chandimal to do the duties of the wicket keeper? So if Dikwella plays, then you need to have Chandimal at number 4, Roshan Silva and Dhananjay De Silva. That would be my batting lineup for you.
All right. Let's find out then what exactly happens. The test match starts on Sunday at 7 p.m. Okay, before we go, I know it's been quite long. Your prediction for the test series.
Well,
give me an honest prediction.
Yeah, the West Indies side is a young side, but they definitely prove that they're quite a capable side when they beat the Bangladeshis in Bangladesh, and especially with the newcomers coming in. So they're coming in with less expectations from them. Like say, they have been asked to go freely, and because there's no much pressure, but they're new players. So when you have a name behind you, it's always a pressure for you, Sam, for you to come and play to the expectation of everybody. But when you're a younger coming in,
no one knows what you're bringing to the table.
So I would say on home soil, with the current while the Sri Lankans have been playing, West Indies might have a edge over the Sri Lankans, but Sri Lankans are very unpredictable cricketers.
Unfortunately.
So hopefully, on a Sri Lankan perspective, and you and I would definitely want the Sri Lankans to win.
All right, let's hope for one though. Although even my heart says that West Indies do have the edge over this one. And hopefully next week when we meet, we will be crying over another test loss. Thank you, DJ Kosala, for talking to us.
Thank you very much, Sam, for having me.
All right, there you go. That's another episode of Cricketology. We will hopefully see you next week talking about that first test that happens against the West Indies. Pray for a Sri Lankan victory. Bye-bye. Cheers.